regulations, where the stakes are high and the margins tight. Firearms retailers, it's your dedication to keep it straight and keep it right. From background checks to forms complete, every step ensures we meet the standards set to keep us safe. Compliance isn't just a race. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true, navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining through. It's the Compliance Corner for every retailer and their crew. Staying sharp, staying legal, we know what we need to do. ATF is watching, they're on our side, helping us ensure we abide by the laws that govern our trade, so our businesses can thrive and not fade. Inventory checks, audits too, we're here to guide and see you through the paperwork and all the files. Together we can walk these miles. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true, navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining through. It's the Compliance Corner for every retailer and their crew. Stay sharp,
I love it.
legal, we know what we need to do.
I think you missed your calling, Joel.
What, to be an AI DJ?
There you go.
AI DJ. AI-age. EOJ. I'm an EOJ, man.
Right.
No, seriously. So you sent me some materials yesterday because I said, hey,
Yep.
can you please send me over something? Because I hate coming into these compliance corners and not knowing what we're talking about. Well, guess what?
Right. You still don't know what we're talking about.
I'm part of the audience today, so I have no idea. I didn't look at it. I was preparing our article for this week. Hey, if you attended our webinar last week on AI, and I promised everyone an email covering everything that we did, you need to keep an eye out for the Core Weekly, because this is going to be a really awesome article. I provide I provide the prompts that you'll need to do everything that we did in that webinar. It's really awesome. So be on the lookout for that. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about some compliance issues, aren't we?
Yeah, and specifically the update. You know, we've all know that Trump announced the end of the no tolerance policy as that was out, and a lot of us were just kind of waiting on what does that exact order look like? What does that administrative order within the ATF look like? And guess what? Now we can see it. It's now showing up online. If you Google it and search it, you can find it and actually read what's in there. So that's what I kind of wanted to bring to light and look at some of the stuff that's in there. And if Joel, if you can throw my screen up there, this is that order, this ATF 5370.1-H. So this is what's now in place at the ATF. And specifically, when we start looking at some of the wording in here, there's a lot to like that kind of brings us back to what we were hoping it would be, back to what it was kind of pre-tolerance. So specifically, this is 16 pages long, so I'm not going to go read over everything, but I want to hit on some points specifically here in section 4, where it talks about doing an inspections and looking at like the entire analysis of the facts and circumstances. So again, where no tolerance was very much a find violation, punish for violation, it's really they're getting back to that look at the facts and circumstances and everything associated, and go from there. So again, it's putting that analysis power back in the hands of the IOIs and the DIOs and everything at the field level to really kind of make these decisions. Specifically, when we look here at Section A, they're talking assessing enforcement action, consider the nature of the violations, the impact of public safety. Is there an effect of violent crime, respecting the rule of law? But also, ATF will also consider aggravating and mitigating factors. So, of course, there's still going to be repercussions if you're doing if things are absolutely wrong and you don't care about the law and you're doing whatever you want to do, and if there's aggravating factors that can work against you and you can still get in trouble for that. But however, we're looking at the mitigating factors. So, and a lot of that comes into play if you're a FFL who's doing everything right. And maybe there's just mistakes in there, but everything else with you is everything else is compliant and this and that, then they can take that into account. They can look at What are you doing? What are your history and everything else? Other piece here in Section B, ATF uses the inspections. Where was that line I was actually looking for? I'm losing track of my own stuff. Use the inspection to educate FFLs on their legal responsibilities to promote partnerships to prevent firearms trafficking. So, and then that's a big deal. Instead of like under no tolerance, instead of it being a very punitive measure, a very punitive order, get back to the IOIs doing kind of what they were doing for a long time, what we all of a sudden the industry wanted them to do and everything, and that's work with the FFLs and educate them and help them be better at what they're doing. And I think that's a big, coming back to that focus is a huge piece of that. We roll into some other pieces here. They start getting into what is actually an administrative action, whether under no tolerance, that seemed much broader. So here they're specifically talking about report of violations in itself is not an administrative action. That's just a report. And also they say down here, it's a administrative action is not a warning conference or a warning letter. So now that's kind of narrowing that scope, and kind of a big thing under no tolerance was, did you have previous administrative actions against you? And it was like, if you had a previous administrative action and now you get a second administrative action, you could get thrown immediately into revocation. Well, this is kind of more narrowly focusing what is that administrative action that can be, analyzed in those aspects. So again, that's kind of good. Coming down here into the Section D, and again, more topics into each decision requires a fact-specific analysis. So again, it's not just this automatic violation, here's your punishment. It's let's look at the entire factors, which I think is really, really good. And we look at B, and again, remember, I'm not a lawyer. I'm kind of looking at this as face value from my background and seeing things I like and what I think is way much of an improvement. So a lawyer analyzes this, they may see something slightly different or give you more, whatever the case may be. But in this Section B, some just the line like this: some violations may be repetitive yet accidental and not inconsistent with public safety. So again, what they're getting back to is if there's a violation that's going to require administrative action or some kind of punitive measure, let's look in exactly what it is and look at the totality of those circumstances. And they are actually going back to accepting, yes, there can be accidents. You can make mistakes. And based on the other totality of the circumstances, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to get administrative action. And this is where that fact-finding analysis and what the IOI sees based on the total history and everything comes into play. So again, and under no tolerance, there was no room for accidents. I mean, they were specifically ATF leadership and conferences specifically said accidents are not an excuse, and that's not going to be an acceptable term. This goes on. It does get into when you're analyzing violations, and does it need to be an administrative action? Does it need to rise to that level? There's some things, the IOIs and the DOIs and those things they can look at, points to look at to kind of help them analyze that. And there's some factors here. Is there a threat to public safety? Is the FFL reporting violations? Are they handling their own violations? Trying to make corrections, and all that. Are they demonstrating that willingness to achieve and maintain compliance? Are they working on it? Do you have a compliance procedure? Do you have processes in place to control this? Have you had errors, but you've made corrections to your processes? All that kind of stuff. And again, were the violations a result of the employee's actions, and did you take action? So if an employee does something that is a mistake that maybe in the past under no tolerance would have been a revocable, here they're actually looking at what did the employee do and what did you do to correct that employee? Did you retrain them? Was there a disciplinary action, or worst case scenario, were they actually potentially terminated? So there's there's more factors into determining everything. So again, we're getting back to that, looking at that totality of the circumstances. Now, can you still get in trouble? 100%. We all know that you can still get in trouble. And in fact, we start talking about that willful thing still keeps popping up. Here, they just return to that. What is that willfulness clause, and what is the definition of that willfulness? And kind of even rolls down here into, some points and things that an IOI during an inspection might see that might prove willfulness on the side of the FFL. So I'll let you work through that yourself. But there's one big point I want to see here under the willfulness measure, and that's here. The ATF has the burden of proof in establishing willful GC violations, and not every repeat violation is willful, even where the legal requirement underpinning the violation was known. So again, the ATF, the burden is on the ATF. We're under no tolerance. It was very much here's a violation, here's your revocation, go to a hearing and prove you weren't willful. So this is kind of a reverse of that. This is now the ATF has to prove that. The ATF has to demonstrate that willfulness and explain that willfulness with this measure. So it's nice to see that burden of proof slide kind of back onto their laps. And then even when it starts talking about the repeat violations, and there's other language in here that talks about, you may have had a violation before, they were accidental, they've proved it, and again, your next inspection, you've maybe had a couple of additional violations, but again, totality is you're not willful. You've been doing things, you've been making changes, you've been trying to improve, you are responsible, you've had, you're correcting problems and everything else like that. It's not an automatic, just because you got violated before, and if you've got a violation now, you're automatically going to revocation. That goes away. So again, it's looking at that totality of everything and truly looking at what is willful, giving a more, having a more defined, putting that burden of proof on the ATF. So overall, being able to actually see the order now, again, I think this is kind of what we were hoping for. I think it really did kind of turn around everything. I don't want to go further. As you go past the point where I was at here, this just gets more into the ATF describing what some of those administrative actions are. Like I said, you can go search, find this document, and read all that if you really want to. Past those few points I pointed out, to me, it becomes kind of insomnia cures. But those were kind of the strong points I brought out. We're really getting to the point back of IOIs refocus on educating, teaching. Burden of proof for willful violations is back on the ATF. Again, repeats are not actually justification in themselves of a revocation or administrative action. And again, back to what is the totality of the circumstances and what is truly going on as a big picture with that FFL. And just because they have mistakes, does that mean they should get an administrative action or get a revocation or something like that? And this is saying no. The field personnel have the discretion to look at that in total and make those decisions. And
so that's basically is put up the guardrails or put them back up, right?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah, because
that would be my takeaway.
Yeah, because if you think about it, and I know there's a saying having to do with something completely different, but what the previous policy was is that pretty much everybody's a lawbreaker, and if everybody's a lawbreaker, there are no lawbreakers, right? So you can't even catch the bad guys because you've deemed everyone a bad guy if they make a mistake. So this gets us back to, if you actually want to catch, people that are actually being nefarious, you have to have a little mercy because not everybody's nefarious. So I think that went back to, and I'm not getting political. I'm making these connections in my brain. But when they came out with the Patriot Act and they were just sucking up everybody's data, and it's like, you're pulling everybody's data in and you're not going to catch the bad guys. You need to start targeting where you pull that data from. So it's the same with this. And I think that's just common sense. So maybe we're back to a common sense way of dealing with
I think so. And if you've got an FFL out there who's doing good, who is actually reporting straw purchasing, reporting trafficking cases, doing everything right, and during inspection, oops, we missed something. That's where the IOI can step in, because you know what? We know these people. We've been working with them for a long time. They have been good. This is just a mistake, and we can move past this. And
okay, so I do have a question that, maybe not a lot of people think about out there, but you mentioned that if a mistake was made, did the FFL discipline or, whatever that person that was acting on their behalf? So if you have an employee and they make a mistake, is there like a template that people can follow where, hey, you made this mistake. We're going to have to put this in the books, because if this ever comes back and bites us, I want a paper trail of, hey,
yeah.
we're keeping up with this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's going to come down. There's not a specific template. I don't think the federal government's going to tell you how to discipline your employees.
Oh,
But
no. I'm talking about,
yeah.
do you, with all of your experience, do you have an idea, or can you give some advice on, hey, here's how I would do it. If I've got people that are acting on my behalf, it's my FFL. I've worked for an FFL before, and I made sure that I was by the letter.
So this kind of, that kind of delves into what are your, and depending how big you are, and do you have an HR department or something like that? But like any employee disciplinary measures and everything else, yes, 100%. You should have something in place to document it, document what the occurrence was, document the corrective action, and a follow-up review with that employee of, are they continuing to make the mistakes? One of the saddest cases I ever saw was an employee made it with the previous FFL I worked on. Employee made a mistake, serious mistake. We fixed it. We trained, we corrected, came back. He reverted right back to old ways, made the exact same type of mistake again, serious mistake. So guess what? At that point, it's time to go. Right. And we just, at that point, as an FFL, especially under no tolerance at that point, we didn't really have a choice, know? But that's the case. It's whatever systems you have in place in terms to, where is that employee file and where is that history, and back that up. Are you tracking employee errors? So if you're reviewing forms for compliance and you're finding mistakes, are you tracking that to the employees? Is there a kind of weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, quarterly review of who's making what mistakes and why, and do you need to address that? That's being the really proactive. Counting those mistakes and going to those employees and providing them some kind of training to avoid that, to get them past that and stop making those mistakes,
Which may be a good practice anyway, because it may reveal some little faults in that employee
100%.
that don't even have to do with that. It could have to do with just their character or whatnot. So
100%. Yeah. And it shows you're proactive. So that's one of those things where something comes in, and if you're in an inspection and the A goes, find a mistake. I mean, and you can pull out a file says, and they want to know, is this normal for this employee? Is this something that's going on a lot? And you can pull out documentation of going, listen, I got 3 years of error reviews and he's been solid for 3 years. This is 100% oops. That shows you're proactive.
Right.
And at the same time, vice versa, you know what? Yes, you know what we did? He was having issues. We wrote a disciplinary action here. So this is a recurrence. We'll have to readdress it. It shows you're on the ball. It shows you're proactive. And it shows you're dealing with. You hate to, as an employer, you hate to discipline employees. You hate to do that. That's not the fun part of the job, but it's a protection piece, and it's an employee development piece as well too. Identify, hey, we can be better here, and try to make them better at the same time.
Right. Yeah, and I think now that it seems like we're dealing with, and we have an honest relationship with the ATF with these new policies, right? Because they're not looking at everyone as, hey, you're all freaking wrong. If we walk in, we find something, you're done. Now we have an honest relationship with the ATF. It should make FFLs want to provide more, because who knows, man? Who knows where we're going to be in 8 or 10 years? And it would be good to have, those practices in place. So,
and we talked about, and there was a comment in that document about self-reporting. And under no tolerance, there was a worry. I think we saw a trend of FFL stop calling IOIs for advice when they had errors or mistakes and how to do it. Because there were some cases that were talked about where an inspection rolls in a few months later and they bring it up as a negative to the FFL. Where here now, where they're looking at, is that a mitigating circumstance that they are self-reporting and dealing with these things? That's a positive. It's showing the FFLs responsive and taking actions to do things right.
Right.
And again, that's kind of that flip. So the hope would be is now with that change in that relationship is they will start reaching back out to IOIs, and they can start having that relationship again.
Yeah. That's where it needs to be. It can't be like a police officer that sees everyone as a criminal is not a police officer, and they need to get out of the business, because they're the ones that usually end up shooting people that don't need to be shot. They end up violating rights that don't need to be violated because they're scared, right? So it's good that we're getting back to this common sense way of dealing with each other.
Yeah, if all you are is a ditch digger and all you ever do is ditch work, it's no surprise that all you ever see is dirt. Right?
That's all you see, and all you want to do is dig a ditch, right?
Yep.
So, yep. Well,
so
that was a quick one. Do you have anything else for us?
Have you been following the suppressor progress?
Man, here's where I stopped following the suppressor progress is when that company came out and they said, "Hey, we don't have anything to do with this. We've always been, pro getting those things off NFA." And then somebody found a lawsuit where their name was in there that they wanted to continue to do, and it's like, all right, I don't have time to keep up.
So
with the
that's
drama.
a side note. So the progression, we all know that the big beautiful bill, as it's been dubbed, was in the Ways and Means Committee or whatever the hell that committee is.
Yeah.
They're tackling it kind of from a tax basis. So when that bill went in for consideration of that committee, there's two pro-gun pieces of legislation that went with it. The HPA, the Hearing Protection Act, which the goal of the HPA is to remove suppressors from the NFA registration.
Right.
The other one was the Short Act, which the goal of the Short Act is to remove short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns from NFA registration. So this committee, even though it's Republican run, so like I said, be mindful of what your politicians are doing.
I know.
They stopped both of them, and they put in a clause that initially would have just reduced the tax on suppressors to zero. So still would require registration paperwork just to zero.
Right.
So that went from that committee in that form and went into whatever it is, the pre-work they do before it goes to the House for a vote. When it went there, they reinstituted the part of the HPA that would remove suppressors from NFA registration. There was a vote early this morning in the House, on the House floor, that passed that bill with that measure in place. So that now goes to the Senate. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But if it passes the Senate,
it takes the suppressors off NFA, so you don't have to. There's no registration anymore.
If this passes the Senate with that in place and gets to the president's desk, to Trump's desk, he signs it into law. That would remove suppressors from NFA registration, and buying a suppressor would basically be the same process as buying a regular firearm across the counter.
Gotcha. Okay.
So that was actually a really cool development. So if you're out there watching, now is the time. It made it past the House with the HPA piece in place. Now is the time to call, email, mail your senators and get on their asses to have them sign off on this to see if this bill can go forward with that still in place and get those suppressors off the registration.
Right. Yeah. Anytime we talk about this stuff, I start sounding like a kook because I don't like any of it. It's like the whole Second Amendment people we talk about the Second Amendment and they think the government is giving the government permission to own guns. Like that's one of the arguments. Like that's just for the military. It's like, oh, okay, the government gave themselves permission. That doesn't even make sense, right? They don't even know what codification means. It means if you've got a pulse, right, you've got the right to own that, whatever it is. So when we start talking about this stuff, my brain gets twisted in knots because I'm like, why are we even arguing about this? Because
if this makes it through, this is used because the HPA, the first time I think I ever saw it tried to get into legislation was back when the 41F rule changed. Some processing with NFA stuff changed. And I want to say that was 2016, 2007, 2018, somewhere around there is where it first became a thing trying to get pushed through legislation. And here we are, 2025, and it may actually happen. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Let me just ask you this. Just, you've been in the industry forever, right?
A little while. I wouldn't say forever.
Well, you probably longer than I have. Let me ask you, how is this going to negatively or positively impact suppressor makers?
So they're going if suppressors come off the NFA registry, suppressor manufacturers are going to be busy as all get out. Because literally, if you can go in and buy them as a regular GCA firearm, all you've got to do is a NICS check, 4473, that process. the suppressor sales, in my opinion, are probably going to go through the roof. So you probably see a mass run on suppressors, and then you would see a lack of availability while manufacturers try to catch up. And then
you may see new manufacturers because
you may see new
to make suppressors and not have like immediate sales. That's a huge risk. So
100%. Yeah.
If you're just building something that's going to be gone tomorrow, heck yeah, spit them out. So you may see more. Hey, does PSA make suppressors?
I don't know. I
don't think if this goes, I guarantee you PSA will start making suppressors. My God,
they make everything. They're making everything else.
My goodness, have you seen some of those deals? My goodness, I don't know how they're doing that, but hey, it's America.
Yeah, because 100%. But like I said, the cautionary tale, I would hope, to watch for. Obviously, anytime a law passes, you worry, is there going to be a change in administration in the future that would reverse some actions or anything else like that, or take the stance. Remember, we talked a while back about a court case where the government tried to pose an argument that suppressors weren't firearms.
Right.
While in the NFA and everything, they are defined as firearms.
Right.
So my hope would be is that somebody who is anti-gun doesn't try to use, if these come off the NFA registry, try to pick that argument back up. And if it's deemed that they are not firearms anymore, can they be banned as an accessory? That would be the legal danger I would think of. And in that case we talked about previous, there was some analysis of that and wondering if that was the scheme behind that original argument. Of course, after the administration changed, that argument was abandoned. They changed their course on that particular case. So obviously this administration, we'd be safe. Who knows what'll happen in the future? And again, I don't want to be conspiracy theorist. I don't want to think, the suppressors come out the registry is bad. I'm all for it. I'd love to see it. I want to see the short act go into effect as well too. That's if in my layman's eyes could see if there's a cautionary piece to watch in the future if this passes, that would be it.
Okay. Well, I hope it all goes away. I literally, and again, usually when you try to legislate something, you're trying to legislate morality, and morality can't be legislated. Because that's what they wrap it in. That's what they wrap all of this stuff in, is, keeping people safe. People are going to do evil, whether they can go to a store and buy it, outright, or they have to fill out paperwork and wait 3 days or 7 days or 10 days. So it would be cool if we just got back to saying, hey, just be like a moral people. That would be really cool. It's not good to kill people, right? So, and if somebody is trying to kill you, it's okay to kill them.
So I don't know. I guess that's the question. You stand up and say, hey, just be a moral person. I guess the next question is, whose morals?
Whose morals? Yeah. Well, as long as you're not hurting anybody or stealing their stuff, I think you're pretty right. So if we got back to that, I think we'd be good. Well,
just have some basic respect for human life. That would be a good start.
That would be a really good start. And you can't legislate that, but if people feel better thinking that a sign's going to keep people from doing bad things, or a piece of legislation, so be it. But we just want to keep all of you out there informed, because it obviously affects your business. Hey, and maybe it's a good time to start reaching out to your suppressor suppliers and getting good with them, because if we're right, or if Tony's right, and this stuff passes and the senators come to their senses and say, yeah, let's just get it through, it's probably gonna be really hard to get suppressors for a little bit, until that one entrepreneur out there sees a way that they can just start spitting these things out, and then they're probably the first $1 billion suppressor company.
With the 3D printing technology, it's getting faster, it's getting cheaper. So my only hope is that if the demand boosts, is that they don't gouge the prices at the same time. So
because we're already used to paying an extra $200. So if they all raise their prices by $200, I think that's going to identify them as not somebody you want to do business with. So either way, man, I'm all for more freedom. I'm all for more letting people just be an adult. Don't bother anybody. Just take care of your stuff. Just I just want to be left alone. I'm like Rambo. I
Right.
just want to be left alone, man.
Right.
I just want to go to the diner and get a cup of coffee and maybe a hot meal, and I'll just continue through your town. Please don't make me get out in the woods because I would die.
Yeah, right. Yeah, when the trees start talking, you know there's a problem.
There, exactly. Well, Tony, so we usually end this off how?
Yeah, I didn't prepare a final statement, but we can always go with the surprise screensaver.
The surprise screensaver.
Yeah.
No, dude, we're not cheap like that. I need something from you. Well, tell me, is there anything in particular going on in your life that you can share with the people? Because we haven't been on here in a while, and we apologize for that. But we only hop on when something's important, because if we hopped on all the time, it would not be as impactful.
Yeah, we want to talk about stuff of substance. We don't want to talk just to talk. And
right,
a lot of our time here has been focused. I was at home office for a week working with developers on, again, just improving some compliance measures in the systems and stuff like that. So that'll be coming out an update next week and everything. And there's been a lot of work just trying to improve processes overall and all that. It's sometimes things seem to be moving slow, but 100% we're working hard. We're trying to get things better. We're trying to make things improved. And I still think some good things are coming. So
awesome. I think good things are coming too, or I wouldn't be here. So
yep.
I am all for it. It's going to be great with the legislation coming up. Just call your senators. It would be cool. Yep. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to see if we can add like a page where all of the senators' names and numbers and email addresses are on our website. That'd be really cool, so people can quickly reach out. Yeah. And maybe in our next one, you can go into a little bit more detail on maybe some things that FFL should do with those employees that may mess up too much. You know what? We should partner with Greg and have a thing on where does compliance roll into. We should. Absolutely. Speaking of that, we're going to have our next Retail Mastery Series with Greg Turner, the CEO of BFG. I think that's next week, and we're going to go over margins. And this guy is absolutely just obsessive with margins. I mean, when you say something like, hey, you can sell less and make more, what the heck does that mean? Well, join us I think it's next Wednesday or Thursday. Be on the lookout for the email invite. And Greg's going to go over that. And it's like, I don't know, it's magic, right? Just math is magic to me. So
it makes my head hurt. We're getting into it, but yeah.
It makes my head hurt really bad. So I think with that, Tony, I think we're good, right?
I think we're good. Good for now, but we'll be back.
We will be back. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and it's almost the weekend, so enjoy that as well.
Yeah, right.
To keep it straight and keep it right. From background checks to forms complete, every step ensures we meet the standards set to keep us safe. Compliance isn't just a race. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true, navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining through. It's the Compliance Corner for every retailer and their crew. Stay sharp, stay illegal, we know what we need to do. ATF is watching, they're on our side, helping us ensure we abide by the laws that govern our trade, so our businesses can thrive and not fade. Inventory checks, audits too, we're here to guide and see you through the paperwork and all the files. Together we can walk these miles. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true, navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining through. It's the Compliance Corner for every retailer and their crew. Stay sharp, stay illegal, we know what we need to do. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stays, we're here to guide you through the maze. Stay ahead, stay compliant, on this journey we're reliant. Welcome to the Compliance Corner, where we stay informed and true, navigating the rules together to keep our freedom shining